Renfield is a film that has quite a lot going for it, but ends up squandering almost all of its potential. The story follows Nicholas Holt's Renfield, who is Dracula's familiar, but after nearly a century of service, he realizes that he may be in an abusive relationship and makes plans to leave. Now, I absolutely love the idea for this movie. Trying to explore abusive relationships through the lens of Dracula and his familiar is kind of genius. It has all the elements to be funny and entertaining, but also an angle that can explore a really difficult topic, maybe better than a normal drama could. There's also a lot of talent here. I love the neon color scheme. Even though it is a comedy, it's great to see some color in the horror genre, and it's also got some really well choreographed fight sequences. But its big problem is in how it fails to deliver on its key concept. The abusive relationship theme of this movie isn't subtext, it's very upfront with it, to the point that it ends up losing a lot of its poignancy. Part of the problem is it starts quite directly with the realization from Renfield in a therapy group that he's in an abusive relationship, which means there's not really a very strong arc for Renfield's character. He realizes he's being abused, doesn't like that, and tries to leave. And while I understand there's nuance to first realizing you've been abused and then ultimately confronting that, this film just never manages to sell that emotional payoff. And that's partly because in a film about abusive relationships, the thing that's really lacking is that feeling of an actual relationship between Renfield and Dracula. The reason those relationships are so difficult and damaging is because abuse victims still have positive feelings, or at least a positive version of the person they're still with. And with Renfield, we never get the confusing feelings of it all. Cage's performance is a lot of fun, and he looks fantastic in the prosthetics they give him, but he never really gets the chance to explore Dracula as a character. I think it would have been far more effective if we actually saw some sort of relationship between the two. You know, some sort of reason as why Renfield stays. Even if Dracula did something nice for Renfield that would give Renfield hope he could change, or even just the fact that Renfield feels sort of out of touch with the modern world and Dracula's the only person who really understands what it's like to live past your time. Just something that would help explain why Renfield has stuck with Dracula for so long. But right from the get-go, it's outlined that Dracula is 100% cartoonishly evil, and without the nuance of how complicated abusive relationships can be, the film's never as emotionally effective as it said it promises. But even if that aspect isn't as good as it could be, it's still the most effective part of the movie. The other half revolves around a young cop played by Awkwafina and her struggle with this crime syndicate around town. It's a really weird thing to add to the comedy vampire movie, and while the film manages to pull these two threads together, it never feels like they gel particularly well. I do like Awkwafina in this. In some movies it feels like she's playing the same Awkwafina persona she's created, but she feels like an actual character here, and she's pretty decent. But again, she's sort of stuck in the weird turns of the script. And that's the other issue. This movie feels really bandaged together. It's a comedy vampire movie, but also a sort of crime cop movie, but also a film with a lot to say about abusive relationships. It's so tonally all over the place, it's kind of hard to settle into. There's a few voiceover sections which really feel like they're there to mask over some chunks that got cut in the editing room, but even if that does contribute to the film feeling a little weird, the movie's always coherent. The annoying thing is that even with all its issues, there's a lot to like in here. It's fun, it looks great, there's a doormat gag which is just brilliant, but it just shows you that when there's problems with the script, there's no amount of talent in other areas that can save it. When this drops on streaming, it's something you can stick on a Sunday afternoon and just sort of mindlessly watch, but unfortunately it's never much more than that. I'd give it a strong 5.